Hello and welcome to the Happy PharmD podcast. My name is Dr. Alex Barker, founder of the Happy PharmD, where we guide pharmacists into jobs that they love. And with me today, I am joined by Theary Chhim, who is a UX UI pharmacist. We'll talk in this part of the episode about what is UX UI and what were the steps that led Theary into that career path. If you are a part of our HPD community, you'll get the second part of this that dives more into the steps that Theary took to get into it, validate that this was a great career path for her, as well as some things and tricks that she learned along her journey to getting into this very niche and interesting career path. And so with that, let's jump into part one. Hi, Theary.
Hey, Alex.
Thanks for hanging out with us today for our podcast. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
So we have a mutual awesome connection. Janan Sarwar, founder of Global Book Publishing Company, founder of a co-company with you, an all-around amazing career coach for us at the Happy PharmD. And she just so happens to think that you're amazing, so you have to be on the podcast.
She's amazing. I think I think I don't know if she's been on yet, but she's definitely an amazing person. I'm so happy to be here. So I'm glad we have that mutual connection.
She actually recommended you, and she said that your career is fascinating. And sure enough, when I pull up LinkedIn and I find you on there, you have done some really interesting career pathing. So I know that you had a background in community pharmacy, and you did that for a long time, and then all of a sudden you got into UX UI stuff. It's a crazy weird thing to get into for a pharmacist.
Yeah, for sure.
For those who have never heard that term before, UX UI, what is UX UI?
So UX UI is user experience and user interface. So I'm a UX UI designer and also do product design. But pretty much, an example would be taking a complex situation, and then you're breaking it down to where if I were to interact with that interface, so a website, software, I would help simplify that path to make it as easy as possible and seamless as possible, where a user wouldn't even have to think to use it. So
Mm,
my goal is to do all that research on the back end to try to understand what sort of problems a user is experiencing, and then design it in a way where it'll be simple. It would feel seamless to use. So that's the type of work that I do, and I definitely feel like there's a connection with that with pharmacy. There is user experience, user interface, whether it's a patient facing or you're using the software and you're trying to interact with that software to help a patient. So I think that's like the one thing that connects the UX UI, and kind of it leads to my jump in career
mhm.
shift.
I know of one client that we worked with a long time ago who was able to transition from community to working for a major um, technology company. I can't say which one because it's under NDA.
Mhm.
But the how he transitioned was he readily used the technology all the time, and he really understood it, and he also understood all of the problems with it. So what he was able to do was basically call up the company and talk to them about, like, here's what I think you need to do, not knowing if it would turn into a consulting gig or nothing at all. And sure enough, a few months later was offered a full-time job. But I think, to your point though, it doesn't have to be just technology, right? We know what patients complain about in the pharmacy system, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of things to improve with customer interfacing with the pharmacy.
Mhm.
Um, as someone who got into UX, we'll talk a little bit later about how you got into it, maybe any experience that you used to get into this field. But like, I'd like to know what even inspired you to think about UX.
Yeah, for sure. It's always so it came to the surface at the start of the pandemic. So at that time, I was a manager at a really busy community pharmacy, and COVID, literally like early 2020, COVID happened, right?
Mm,
So now you're challenged with how do you manage your staff? How do you pick up the vaccines? What's your workflow? Where does the line go? How do you train your technicians to be able to vaccinate? How do you do this and manage all the fears and questions patients might have, and even your staff?
mm,
So, and we were having to navigate that in a really short amount of time based off of
mm,
whatever information, we had. So that user experience, customer experience, patient experience, I started seeing like, okay, looking at it like this is a problem that we have to solve for. We have to solve for it quickly and effectively. And if it doesn't work, we could try again and do something different. So during that time, during the pandemic, it was just apparent that I was looking at it more like a UX researcher type of perspective, approaching it that way, taking what sort of guidelines we had and just making it work for our pharmacy, for our layout, for our patients, and knowing
mm,
like the volume that we were going to have, um, and just really asking a lot of questions. So I pretty much stayed as a pharmacist during those first couple of years of the pandemic,
mhm,
and then reached a point where I was like, wait, this is what I would be doing. How could I solve this on a larger scale? Like I'm making an impact, a positive impact here in the pharmacy, but how could I do this on a larger scale? And how can I look at the source of some of these issues that we're experiencing? For example, like our software or workflow challenges. Just by that alone. So I decided it was the right time to make the jump, and I'm sure during that time, a lot of pharmacists can remember like whether they're really going to stick with their current career or make the transition. And so I decided that was the perfect time. Like
mm,
it was to the point where I was like thinking about not only the user problems that I was seeing and observing and trying to solve for, but also like the environment I was working in. Like patient safety is like the number one thing. And so I was like, with prescription filling, vaccines, testing, it was like a storm. So I was like, you know what? This is this isn't there's a better path for me that my creative side would be nurtured. And so there was I was like, okay, let's look into UX design in healthcare. So really that was like the pivotal turning point in my life where I was like, uh, I'm gonna do this. I kind of already knew that I was gonna do this because I didn't talk about this, which we'll talk about later, but I was already a designer at a tech startup in Germany in between my pharmacy career. So that's like
mm,
jumping around. So when I was returning, I just went back into pharmacy, and reality was like, okay, I can build up my account again because living abroad it's a different salary, but you just didn't need as much. And
sure.
so then the pandemic hit. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is my oath as a pharmacist. I'm gonna stick this through and help as many people as possible. But at a certain point, you kind of decide like, do you feel confident every day going to work that a patient's going to be safe? Are you in an environment that's going to help patient safety? Or it was like this thing that's just like creeping up. And then I started identifying all these problems like at scale. I could go into UX UI in healthcare. And so
Mm.
that
Yeah,
was
we
really
need
the
people
spark
like
that
you.
was like to jump into
So,
that.
in we'll talk about the how you made the transition later,
Mhm.
but what is it? So you're talking about complex systems, you're looking at design and customer flow, but what does a designer do on a day-to-day basis, especially with someone with your background?
Yes. So on a day to day basis, like you're trying to improve a customer experience, whether it's designing a website and they need to access certain forms as basic as that, or accessing different other clinical forms, or different, just to be able to experience that. And right now, I'm currently working at a cancer center, so you're looking at cancer clinical care, and then you're also looking at research, and then you're looking at the whole team of how they would access resources that they would need.
Mm,
So on day to day, you pretty much have a problem you need to solve for, how to improve that. You do a lot of discovery work to figure out what are the problems that a user is facing. Um, how is this product or this interface currently structured? And then you decide, with your team of designers, developers, leadership, you decide, okay, what what is our problem we're going to solve for? Take that information, you iterate on like a possible solution, and then you see if it's even possible to even develop, and then you test it out to see if this possible solution is going to work, and then you just track it. So
yeah.
um, we currently are working on multiple different projects. So I'm currently on the marketing communications team at the cancer center. So it's not quite in the clinical side yet, which is something I'm obviously very interested in as well. But
Mhm.
we are doing projects such as designing oncology reports. And that oncology report is either going to go to um, stakeholders, somebody in the organization. It could go towards somebody looking at grants. It could be for a presentation. And you're kind of thinking about it like from a clinical perspective as well, and how they're going to
Mhm.
receive the information. And then you're also thinking about it like, if it's not clinical, how can I display this information or this infographic in a way that is digestible? So taking that
Mm.
complex background or matter, and just simplifying it and making it like easy to understand, easy to scan. So it's really solving for that user problem, doing a lot of research and coming up with a solution that you know would work to help solve that problem and make it easier for somebody.
Mm. When we've helped pharmacists get into design, user design, it's really, really rare. And usually they have an informatics background. So that's why I love talking to you, right? Because as far as I remember, you didn't have that in your background, correct?
No, I was definitely interested in it because I thought that that
Yeah.
was like what I thought that was the direction I wanted to go toward, because that was all that I saw that was out there. So
Okay.
um,
But it's
definitely North America.
super
Yeah.
I was gonna say nerdy, but I was like, wait a minute, we're all nerds in pharmacy. Um it's very process and operationally driven, right? Sometimes people can find the creativity in that, but not all. And from what I know about you, you seem like you really enjoy the creative process. Is that a fair statement?
Totally fair. Like a lot of the projects I pick up, it's been in me since I was young, like kid, since I was a kid, just to be creative, and so that carried through my entire life. So the creative
Mm,
process, taking like a concept, hey, I need this done, um, with like a few sentences, chatting with whoever is putting the request in, and then coming up with a design that meets their expectations.
mm,
And so that happens every day, from the
yeah.
smallest thing to like the biggest project. So
Were you
creativity for sure.
artistic as a kid?
What's that?
Were you artistic as a kid?
Oh yeah, I was drawing since I was like drawing in reports. I used to do in like the 6th grade. I was so into sneakers that I
Yeah.
did a report on how to clean your shoes, and it was like this 3D pop up of like Nike, the Nike Air Max 90s. Like it was just,
Mm.
it's always been in me. So but I've also always wanted to help people. So
That's,
creativity, yeah.
you know, um, I read a lot about career development research, and
Mhm.
there's like really mixed evidence about who we are as kids and the things that we're drawn to and having that lead to career decisions. But maybe I just need to do my own research report on this podcast. But it seems to me that like who who we are as kids often, if we allow it, gets reflected in our career later in life. Um, I mean, for me, I wanted to be the class clown. I wanted to spark controversy, no matter how many detentions I would get, you know, from my misbehavior. And I kind of feel like I do that now in some ways, at least on LinkedIn. And for you, like a typical community pharmacy retail job is not going to allow you to be artistic or to draw or to be paid for that kind of thing. But here you are. Congratulations. You made it.
It took a really long time to figure that out, you know? Growing up, it was like traditional, it's all you knew, and then I graduated in, like, 2013, so it was just all traditional. I thought, like, retail was, like, it, you know? So finding the role of UX, UI designer in the healthcare space, was like, "Wow, I wish more people knew about this because I can't be the only creative pharmacist out there.
Yeah.
There's gotta be so many." And I've actually been able to meet a handful of other pharmacists doing the same thing. It's like we have a little women's group, and, I've met maybe 3 or 4 other pharmacists doing the same thing. A few are stayed in clinical healthcare space, and another just went out to tech. But, finding something where it'll nurture my creative side, but yet also nurture my, like, clinical side, is amazing. Like, I've worked with Derek. I don't know if you know Derek from Pearls.
Mm.
He does Pearls drug app, and so I've been able to. He reached out to me. We were able to connect on that, doing things like simplifying a pharmacotherapy drug chart. Like that's to me exciting. Like or looking at like drug information and presenting it in a way that's digestible and scannable when you're like under pressure. There's no time.
Mm.
You got to figure out what this is, and I love it. So I just feel so happy that I finally found something that like that actually it exists and it's possible and you can have a career out of it. And it
Mm.
took a really long time to figure out because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I knew about informatics, right? But it just wasn't. I thought that was a pathway. Um, but after a lot of research and reaching out to honestly other people doing the same thing or other pharmacists in health tech, it just kind of just went for it. So I'm just
Mm.
happy that I found something that I love. It's creative. I'm good at it, and it doesn't feel like work to me at all.
It's a sweet spot to be in. And
Yeah, I'm
the other
so
thing that's
thankful.
really right. The other thing that's really neat about, I mean, when you build a career like that is opportunities are, given to you. So because of this passion now, it's led to not only you getting a job doing that kind of work full time, but it's also, I believe that you're a contractor as well, and you've been into a partnership with Janan with a with one of her companies, right? Like all of these opportunities happen because of you connecting with really what makes you come alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been super, it's been super organic and it just feels natural. Like, at first, you're kinda
Mm.
nervous, like, "Did I just reach out to this random person on LinkedIn because they're doing something I like?" Like, I'm sure everyone's thought of that.
Right.
Everyone's
Right.
experienced that. But the more
Yes.
you do, you realize you have this community of pharmacists who are so willing to, like, just talk to you, you know?
Mm.
They're like they can relate to you, I just and working with Janan, just, we decided to partner up, um, and I designed, a cover for her and with her global bookshelves, well, with her global through her global bookshelves hybrid company. She had other projects that weren't necessarily focused with global bookshelves, and so I was able to work on those projects with her. And we
Mm.
started a self-publishing consultant company with each other, where she focuses on the publishing side and I get to the design side. So now we're looking at it as self-publishing a book as your business card. You know, um, a lot of readers will really get to know who you are. The experiences you've had,
Mm,
and that for a reader to understand what you're about, what you value. There, we're hopes that it'll be a positive experience for them and a positive experience for our authors. You know, so that's what we're doing, and we just recently launched our website, um, publishingindoses.com, and it tells you a little bit more of our process and what we do, and I think it's super creative project to work on together, and we're excited about this new adventure.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you could go back in time to Theary of, I don't know, maybe pre-pandemic, what do you wish you could tell her?
Just start, just do it. Like nothing has to be perfect. You don't have to have like, obviously financially get to a point where like, okay, I could take this risk. Um, but if there's something like I wish I would have just started right away. Like looking for that right job versus going back into community where it was like my comfort zone. Like I knew I was always gonna be able to work in retail.
Mm,
But honestly, that first job I applied to, it should have been like a healthcare UX UI product design role.
mm,
That's what I would tell her. I would tell her just to pursue it, um, and just because I was tailgating off of a design job in tech already, and
mm.
so I would have told her just to go for it. Like imposter syndrome is real, but you had to quiet those voices and just think about all the experiences and things you've done, and just to go for what you're most passionate about. That's what I would tell her.
So stinking cool. I love these niche pharmacy career paths that people get into. I mean, it's insane, and it's so wonderful to see people's interests come out in pharmacy and like forcing these new and interesting career paths. If you would like to learn more about Theary's journey, you can head over to our community. If you're not a member, it's very easy to join. I'd love to see you in there. And thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast.